Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swirsky's Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swirsky's Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose, as long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swirsky's Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swirsky's Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swirsky Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Shawn. On this episode, we are going to talk about the biggest, most important win this city has seen, well, is football-wise in a long time. Also, we're going to talk about the dregs of the NHL and the NBA. And also, like to wish a happy 100th episode to Alex co-hosting this show. Yeah. But first, I'd like to thank our...
I can't believe it.
I know, right? 100 episodes. Congratulations and welcome aboard. But
Well, thank
let's
you.
thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You could see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Don't want to see it losing at expensive prices? Want to bring your family? Head on over to icehogs.com. Get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. At beautiful BMO Harris Bank Center, less than 90 minutes from the city limits, and fun for the whole family. Check them out, icehogs.com. Oh, yeah, well, 100 episodes. That's awesome. Just seems like yesterday.
I know, yeah, it was December 2016 when I first joined, and I think, if I remember correctly, the first episode I did was we were talking about a heartbreaking Packers loss when they were only a 3-win team. And now on episode 100, they're getting ready to play the Packers and are 1 win or Viking loss away from clinching their first NFC North title since 2010. So you could say things for the Bears have changed a little bit since my first episode.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we can say is little Super Bowl shuffle action because this team is going all the way.
So you're already
I'm already shuffling. I am already
huh?
shuffling. I am that confident.
Man. I mean, when we started this episode, there was a spring in your step, and I can tell that you're excited to talk about this Bears victory. And I think that is Sunday night watching the game, and I saw 3/4 of it. I missed the first quarter because I was at the United Center watching the Hawks lose again, but that's a whole other story. Watching the game, just the roar of the crowd, the energy. I don't think I've seen a crowd at Soldier Field that into it since the 2006 NFC Championship game.
Yeah, I mean, these fans were absolutely rabid. I saw videos that people were posting online. I knew a few people at the game
Me too, yeah.
that were texting me videos, and it's funny. Typically in a big game like this, I am a nervous Nelly. I mean, I'm pacing. I'm wearing out my shoes. I'm pacing so
Me
much.
too.
I bite my fingernails so they bleed. I mean, I'm a wreck. If I smoke cigarettes, I'd probably smoke 3 packs. But this game, I didn't feel nervous. I was confident they were going to win. I just felt the absolute confidence that they were going to win. I didn't know how. I didn't know what they were going to do. And it's not the way I thought they were going to win, but they won. And I just felt it in my bones, and I was calm pretty much the whole game through.
See, throughout the game, you saw the Bears do huge thing after huge thing on defense. And every time something went wrong, they would immediately shut down any worry by making a big play. Biggest example, Trubisky throws his third pick, and you got trouble here. Then, right away, Kyle Fuller with an interception. First play. Also, they're driving. They're in our territory. Then we stop them cold. And we're like, all right, limit them to a field goal. And thank the Lord Almighty, somebody finally missed against the Bears. A nice clanker off the post. And it felt like it was meant to be. So every time you thought, oh, God, here we go, right away they would answer back. I mean, look at, like, when they were first and goal and they had, 3 penalties, moved them back, and they had to settle for a field goal. They came right back on defense and just shut it down. And that defensive performance was something that we have dreamed of for a long time. You saw everything. They were in complete control of that game, and they made a star quarterback and star running back look scared.
I mean, just to put this into perspective, is what the Bears did to the Los Angeles Rams. The Los Angeles Rams have 2 MVP contenders on their offense. They score 35 points a game. This isn't like, this isn't like those first 3 weeks with Fitzmagic when they were scoring, 35 points a game. This is, we are coming up to the very end of the season. They've averaged 35 points. It was just like 2 weeks ago that they put up, 54 points in a game to win?
Yeah, and also put it in perspective that even though they lost, they put up a crap ton of points against the New Orleans Saints, who are arguably the best team in football. On the road.
I mean, so this is a team that is just steamrolling people. Steamrolling them. And the Bears held their one MVP candidate to 180 yards passing, no touchdowns, 4 interceptions.
Could have easily been 5.
Yep. And they held their other MVP candidate to 28 yards rushing and 3 yards receiving.
See, everyone talks about what they did to Jared Goff, and that's completely fair. I think we should praise the heck out of that secondary and the way they kept the pressure. But the thing I really wanted to talk about is they stuffed Gurley like a Thanksgiving turkey. He went nowhere.
I mean, the thing is this is not like stuffing a small running back. Todd Gurley is a big man. He's 230
Watch what
pounds.
he does to defense.
Yeah, he will pound you. And the Bears just shut him down.
It was incredible. And you know what? It's not like he even had a chance to run. As soon as he got the ball, he just was met by a giant pouncing wall of defenders.
It was a thing of beauty to watch. And yeah, granted, we saw a bad quarterback play on our end, but watching that defense play was a thing of beauty. And listening to all of the excuses that they're giving for Jared Goff. Well, it was cold. Well, his lineman stepped on his foot. His lineman didn't just run up and step on him. His lineman got driven back by a Bears defender. And that's not like a nobody that's out there. That's a multi-time Pro Bowl player out there. And he got worked. We got worked back, and that's what you do, is if you can't beat your man, you drive your man back and collapse the pocket with him.
Just look at what Akeem Hicks and Khalil Mack do alone. I mean, Akeem Hicks had another fantastic game on Sunday. That guy is just a monster.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a lot of people will just look at him and be like, oh, well, he didn't have 3 sacks, so he didn't have a good game. Watch the game. They had a game plan to stop him. That was their game plan. They were not going to let Khalil Mack beat them. And Khalil Mack still changed the way that game was played and still got a strip sack. On the flip side is the Bears said, we're not going to let Aaron Donald beat us. And Aaron Donald did nothing.
Well, and another thing that you got to look into this is watch how many throws Goff had with just a guy in his face. And even if they weren't getting intercepted or whatever, they were just incomplete. They were literally in his face. And Mac had another he forced another fumble. I don't know how the Bears didn't recover that, but you saw what he did.
Yeah, it's like his hand is a magnet for that ball. It's he reaches and just finds that ball and takes it away. It's amazing.
It is. I think that you can't question how good this defense is when they do that to the Rams. You just can't.
Yeah, I mean, we were all down on ourselves about that Giants game. And we're starting to see that the Giants have some life into them.
They do. They're playing a lot better. I think that they were always a better team than the way they played, even though I still don't think they're a very good team, but they're not the terrible 3-4 win team we thought they were. I'll give them that. It's probably not good for them, though, because it's going to hurt their drafting. But, hey, they are playing better. And I guess I feel better about that Dolphins game a little bit after what they did to the Patriots. But, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you're 9-4, and you're one win or one Vikings loss away from an NFC North title. And you're going to the playoffs. I can, for the first time, say with 100% confidence you're going to the playoffs.
Yeah, it's 538.com. Has them at a greater than a 99% chance of making it. The list of things that would have to happen for the Bears to not make the playoffs is pretty astronomical.
I'm sorry, what did you say? You cut out for a sec.
Oh, I'm sorry. The 538.com has the Bears with a greater than 99% chance of making the playoffs. And the list of things that would have to happen for the Bears to not make the playoffs is like astronomically improbable. The Packers would have to win out. The Vikings would have to win out. The Seahawks would have to win. The Bears have to lose every game. It's hard to imagine that happening. So they're not 100% locked in yet, but they are as close as a lock as you can be.
Yeah, for sure. Really quick, before we talk more, I just kind of want to talk about next week's matchup with Green Bay. And please, just tell me I'm crazy, okay? With what I'm about to say. Can you just tell me I'm crazy? All right?
Okay.
I think that this win is incredibly important for the Bears, not only to win the NFC North, but to ensure they don't have to play Green Bay in the first round. Is that crazy? Because I know Green Bay's chances are not good right now, but they still technically have a chance if they win out.
Statistically, they have a 3% chance of making it.
Right.
Here's what would have to happen for the Packers to make it. And so right now, they can't make the 5 seed. They can't make seeds 1 through 5. Already mathematically eliminated.
It would have to be seed 6.
Seed 6 is the only one that they have a mathematical chance of still making. And that's right now occupied by the Minnesota Vikings at 6-6-1.
Who are reeling.
Yes. But so right now the Packers are 5-7-1. Here's the thing of it. The first tiebreaker between those two is head-to-head record. And they tied once and the Vikings beat them the second time.
Right.
So that means the Packers have to have a better record than the Vikings. They can't tie them. So at 6-6-1, if the only way that they could beat, the only way that they can make the playoffs is, and this is assuming that the Eagles, Redskins, and Panthers lose the rest of their games, which is a big assumption. So this is just assuming this is the Packers and the Vikings.
So all those teams have to lose out.
Well, the Eagles play the Rams, the Texans, and the Redskins. So, excuse me, they are likely going to lose against the Rams and the Texans and beat the Redskins. So that would leave them 7-9. The Redskins, I'm going to assume they lose the rest of their games because they're bad. They're bad with their third quarterback. So they're kind of written off. But if they lose the rest of their games, they're 6-10. Still ahead of the Packers if the Packers don't win. The Panthers have a very tough schedule. 2 out of their next 3 games are against the Saints. The third one is against the Falcons. So I'm going to chalk them up with 1 win. That leaves them at 7-9. So that means to beat any of those teams, the Packers have to win at least 2 games, which is doable because they have the Bears, Jets, and the Lions. Jets and the Lions, very winnable games. And if they go 2-1, that leaves them at 7-8-1 for the season. That means the Vikings just have to win 1 game to knock the Packers out. If the Packers somehow beat the Bears, then beat the Jets, then beat the Lions, then the Vikings would need to win 2 games to knock them out. And so it's very, very slim chance the Packers make it. And if the Bears, when the Bears beat them next week.
You're saying when? You're saying when?
Yes.
Wow.
When the Bears beat them. Because the Packers can't win on the road. And they are not as good as the Bears. And the Bears are motivated and hungry. And the Packers don't have a head coach. And when the Bears beat them, that will move the Bears to 10-4. Lock them up as the division champions. And it will all but certainly knock the Packers out of the playoffs.
Right. That's why I'm saying this game is so big. Look, I'm one of those people that even if there's like a 0.01% chance, I have that gut feeling that Rodgers is going to pull off some unbelievable miracle. And I'm just praying the Bears can take care of business. I should have all the confidence in the world in them. If it was any other team, I probably would. I've just seen so many heartbreaking losses come to the hands of the Packers over so many years. I'm almost like trained to assume that something's going to happen.
I'm not sure if you heard Akeem Hicks on the radio this morning, but he clearly said he remembers Aaron Rodgers talking about all the success that they've had at Soldier Field. This defense, they know what's up. They know what they have to do. And I think they're going to be prepared and they're going to come hard.
Yeah, let's, I would love to see just a nice blowout victory. But yeah, again, I'm going to be nervous until they actually do it because, well, yeah, I've already explained it.
And mathematically, if the Vikings beat the Dolphins and when the Bears beat the Packers, that mathematically eliminates the Packers from the playoffs.
Yeah. That would be a pretty good Sunday.
Because then the best the Packers could do is tie the Vikings, and the Vikings have the tiebreaker. So, yeah, the Vikings are going to lose against the Bears. Well, that last game of the season, you never know what's going to happen because who knows, if the Bears will play all of their starters or whatever. Yeah,
I was gonna say, and they'll probably be fighting for their lives. And I don't think if they have everything clinched, they wanna risk injury going into the playoffs.
Yeah. So who knows what happens in that game, but the Packers have a real long way to go. I mean,
yeah. I'm just saying, I would hate to have to lose to Rodgers and then face him in the playoffs again. I would hate that.
yeah, it would be a miracle though if somehow the Redskins could make it into the playoffs. Is that would be
that's not
awesome to face a inexperienced young quarterback that doesn't belong in the NFL, and just eat him alive.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who they play in that first round. It'll be interesting. But let's wrap the division up first.
Honestly, it's I can't really see too many pathways that don't have the playoffs with the same 6 teams that are currently in not making it. I mean, the Rams, Saints, lock's already. Bears, as close to a lock as you can be. Nobody's beating the Cowboys for that division. So they'll be either the 3 or 4 seed, depending on if they have a better record than the Bears.
I was going to say, do you think there's a possibility that the Bears may be a 5 seed if I mean, let's say the Cowboys win out and the Bears, I don't know, win 2 or 3.
The Bears would be
who has the tiebreaker there?
I don't know, but I think the Bears do.
Okay.
Yeah, but the Bears are either going to be the 3 seed or the 4 seed. The Cowboys have a pretty easy schedule left the rest of the way. They have the Colts, who are actually playing real tough lately, but then they've got the Bucks and the Giants.
Yeah, they could beat those teams.
I think they could go 3-0. The Vikings have the Dolphins, Lions, and the Bears. The Seahawks have the 49ers, the Chiefs, and the Cardinals. So I realistically expect it to be Bears, Vikings in the first round, and the Cowboys, Seahawks in the wild card round, which would then mean the Bears went on to play the Rams.
Yeah, one week at a time. 1 week at a time.
Yeah, so Bears, Rams to go to the NFC Championship, and then we have to march through New Orleans to go to the Super Bowl.
Man, you're already making all your plans, aren't you?
I know. I just got to look up where the Super Bowl is and get my tickets ready.
Man, you are such a meatball right now. I love it.
I'm loving this.
You're the optimistic meatball. I'm the one who's still so worried about stupid crap. It's kind of a nice clashing of personalities.
I am normally the nervous Nelly that the Bears could be up 45-0 with a minute 27 seconds left on the Packers in the fourth quarter, and I'm still nervous until Aaron Rodgers could still score 48 points in a minute.
Yeah, I know.
But I just feel confident. I mean, after seeing what the Bears did to the Rams, I'm confident. And not to say that I guarantee anything, but it just to see, that the Rams can be stopped. That we saw that the Saints can be stopped. We saw the Cowboys do it. And we saw the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do it for the first half. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who the Bears should have put 100 points on them. So the Saints can be stopped. The Rams can be stopped. They're both very, very good teams. They just are not perfect teams. They have chinks in the armor. And
those chinks were exposed at Soldier Field.
Yeah. And that was the whole thing about Jared Goff is if you give him a clean pocket, he is phenomenal. If you get a little pressure on him, he's terrible. He's not to the same extent. That's a very similar thing to a lot of quarterbacks, but Jared Goff is like a hyperbole of it because he's so good when he's clean and he's so bad when there's pressure. The only one I can think of that's as bad is Kirk Cousins. that guy, he just hears pressure coming and he just flings it.
Yep.
So let's break down this Rams game a little more.
Mm-hmm.
We've sung our praises, but this very easily could have been an absolute whitewashing if Mitch Trubisky decided to show up in the game.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of rust there. The throws were they were not good at all. They were not accurate. His best throws is when he was throwing quick balls just, for 10 yards. But every ball downfield was wobbly in the air, and it was very easy to intercept.
Yeah. I mean, that first interception just went right to Marcus Peters. And it was... it was such a blatant overthrow. And, at first I was like, all right, well, that's Mitch sort of starts off games overthrowing. Is that nerves? But then watching him, he just overthrowing so much that it got me wondering, is that shoulder still hurt?
Well, yeah, you can't help but wonder.
And I don't know if you follow Lester Wiltfong on Twitter. He used to be on the show quite a bit. He's the editor of Windy City Gridiron. But he posted that he's got a friend that's a quarterback's coach. And his friend was saying that when there's shoulder pain, that you'll overthrow a lot. And, trying to overcompensate. And I mean, maybe that's part of it, is because Mitch just didn't look like Mitch.
No, he didn't. And I think that it's reasonable to think that there was some rust there. I mean, call it a terrible performance because it was a terrible performance. But, I think the fact that he missed several weeks and, maybe was still in some pain affected things. I don't know how much. I don't know how he feels, but I think it's reasonable to at least think that.
Yeah, I'm just... that's my big nervous worry, is if something's wrong with Mitch. I mean, this defense will carry us far, but without Mitch, we can't go very far. It'll be, we'll go to the playoffs, probably win the first game, but it's going to be real hard to win against the Saints or the Rams without better quarterback play, because we'll be playing in either Los Angeles, which will probably be like 75 and sunny, or indoors in New Orleans. And those are, perfect conditions for good quarterback play. And, you expect the Bears defense to be able to show up and play well, but it gives the defense an advantage when it's at home in the cold, but it gives those high-powered offenses the advantage when they're at home and in the perfect conditions.
Well, you bring up conditions, and there was another thing I wanted to talk about on offense, is that I thought that it was great seeing Jordan Howard do some things, because you're going to need more of that in weather like this.
Yeah, it was nice. It was really nice to see Jordan Howard, run the ball well. I think you're right. Is they're gonna need to lean on him some more, because they're getting very one-dimensional with the passing game. And when Mitch has a bad game, or Mitch is injured, or whatever the case may be, or the conditions are bad for throwing the ball, you got to be able to run the ball. And if you don't ever do it, it's real hard to just jump right into it and start running the ball well. We saw that when they tried to do it against the Giants, and they went nowhere. I mean, that's something that was nice to see, because it's going to become more and more important especially come that
Absolutely.
first playoff game, because the weather's going to be nasty here, and you need to be able to pound the ball if need be. And even if not because of the weather, at the end of the game, you want to run that clock out.
Exactly, and that's something that Jordan Howard is really there for. That's what he's going to do there. And you saw him break off some very nice runs in that Rams game. I mean, look, his last 2 games, he's looked more like the Jordan Howard of the first few years. I think that's a great sign.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the problem is it's definitely partly offensive line when the holes aren't there. Part of it is sometimes Jordan Howard is missing gaps when they are open, and his vision's not what it has been. Whether that's due to the change in schemes and he's still learning it, or whatever the case may be, he's missing gaps that are open. Sometimes it is just the scheme isn't prepared for the defense that's called, and there's a free runner just out of the it ends up being a perfect play call versus the offensive play call. Sometimes it's the tight ends and wide receivers that aren't doing their part of blocking. So there's a lot of fault that's in here, and it's something that Matt Nagy has to be cognizant of and start learning from.
And I think we're finally seeing that, because you've seen more holes for Howard to run through the past few games, and you've seen what happens. So I like to think that it is an improvement that's going to keep improving, basically. It's going to be kept working on, and they're going to keep improving on it. So that's my optimistic look at it, because you do need it.
Yeah, so I'm really happy that they were able to pound the ball. And if you would have told me before this game started that Todd Gurley would have 28 yards rushing and the Jordan Howard have 101 yards rushing, final result of the score, I think that's even more believable than 101 versus 28 in Jordan Howard's favor. But that's the reality. Jordan Howard got 100 yards rushing and really had some great runs at the end of the game when they needed it. And if you look, part of the byproduct of this was it slowed down pass rush by the Rams. And look at the time of possession that the Bears had versus the Rams. Not only were the Bears absolutely, stuffing the Rams when they were trying to go, drive on offense, but the Rams just didn't get a lot of time with the ball.
No, they didn't.
Is the Bears controlled the clock. And that's part of it too, is if you keep the ball away from a high-powered offense and give them less opportunities, it's less times that you have to stop them. And it ran that clock down so fast that the next thing you know is it's fourth quarter and the Rams are starting to get a little desperate.
And if you weren't forcing 3 and outs, you were just taking the ball away.
There was a
You were
lot
just
of takeaways
taking the ball
in this
away.
game.
That simple.
Yeah,
Question
take it
for
away.
you. What was your favorite interception?
Yes.
Of all the interceptions, which was your favorite? Oh, let me rephrase that. What was your favorite defensive play of the game?
Favorite defensive play of the game.
Could be an interception. It could be a sack. It could be a tackle.
Yeah.
It's hard to pick.
I'm gonna go with right after you'd referenced this one earlier, is right after Mitch Trubisky threw an interception. And that was one time where my nerves started to get elevated, and I think it was on the very next play. Kyle Fuller just jumped in front of one, read the play, intercepted it, and got the ball back for the Bears.
Yeah, that was huge, because any momentum that the Rams had was just taken away with the snap of a finger. I think
It wasn't just taken away. It was got his face rubbed in the dirt and then kicked in the crotch.
yeah, essentially. Yeah. Yep.
I mean, how do you, like, if you're an offense and you're like, yeah, our defense just took it away. We've got good field position. We are not down by very many points. We are marching down here. And the very first play, you throw an interception that just read perfectly, intercepted. You just walk back to that sideline and you're just like, what the hell are we doing? What? Can we just go home already?
Yeah, that was huge. I think it was either that or it was the sack on 4th down. Was that
Yeah.
Akeem Hicks? I can't remember.
I didn't write it down who it was on my notes.
But you know what I'm talking about. It was 4th down, and because they had 2 4th down plays, one was an interception, one was a sack. Technically, the interception was really what sealed the deal by Prince Amukamara, but that sack, just the way the crowd just rumbled after that play, that was just awesome.
Yeah, it was a blast to watch. But offensively, there was another huge issue that I had, and that was more pre-snap penalties. So many pre-snap penalties between illegal shifts, illegal formations. Like, how are these not cleaned up by whatever week 14 or 15 or whatever we're in?
Yeah, especially on that one drive that I referenced earlier where they were like, 2 yards away. They were 1st down and goal from like the 2 or the 4. And all they really needed to do was give the ball to Howard and they would have scored a touchdown. And then they moved back all those yards. Yeah, that was definitely a problem, especially in the first half.
Yeah, it was awful. We have so many drives that are stalled by pre-snap penalties. And a lot of them are just dumb formation things, is not being up on the line. Like, just look up. And a lot of them are the wide receivers. Like, why don't the wide receivers know how to line up? That's infuriating. We have, we have veteran wide receivers. They should know how to line up and when to not cover the tackle, when to get on the line. Like, figure it out. It's infuriating. I understand it preseason, definitely, especially with the new offense. I understand it in the first quarter of the season because you're still implementing things. But when you're in the biggest game so far of your season, and it is like, 14 games in, 13 games in, like, these things shouldn't happen. Occasionally, okay. But back to back ones, that's bad. That needs to be cleaned up, like stat.
And honestly, there have been games where the Bears have been incredibly well disciplined. So I don't know if it was just, they were playing in the moment or it was getting too much for them. I don't know. But yeah, definitely. That can't happen in big games like that.
We saw Bobby Massey get beat really bad by Dante Fowler. And that was a bad one. I mean, for the most part, this offensive line has played pretty well in pass protection. But that was a bad one where Fowler basically just dipped underneath his arms. And I don't think Bobby Massey even touched him.
Yeah, no, I don't. Maybe he got a piece of jersey on him, but if we're lucky. But don't we say Bobby Massey gets blown up like every week?
This one was bad. I mean, this was one that, if this was basketball, they'd say he was posterized. It was that bad. He does get beat. He's probably gotten beat the most out of any of the Bears offensive linemen. But probably have to pull the Pro Football Focus numbers, but that was a real bad one. I mean, that was a real kick in the teeth there.
I do feel like overall, though, Bobby Massey has been at least respectable
Oh, I mean,
for what he is.
I think he's actually done a pretty solid job. He's been probably the weakest link as far as pass protection goes, but this team as a whole has done really well in pass protection. I mean, how many times has Mitch been, consistently under pressure? Not very much. He gets pressure here and there, but between his mobility and that line protection, he's had it pretty good.
Absolutely.
And
I think another thing that's worth noting is that they played all around really well, despite that one Bobby Massey incident. They played really well throughout the game for both the pass protection and the run.
And there's one particular person who I just want to give a big shout out to, and that is James Daniels. James Daniels, I know he wasn't one-on-one with Aaron Donald very much, but he did a stellar job of being the anchor against him, because Aaron Donald is, right there with Khalil Mack and JJ Watt as the best players on defenders in football. And he's been a holy terror on people. And I think even a lot of diehard Bear fans were worried that he was just going to eat Mitch Trubisky up. And he had one tackle.
Every big player on the Rams was contained in some form, and it was glorious. It wasn't just shutting down Goff. It wasn't just shutting down Gurley. It was literally every big player on the Rams. Everything that we feared was shut down.
Yeah, I mean, but it was to see a rookie who's only started, 6 games, and just to do such a good job against Aaron Donald. And I know there's been times during the season where you go through growing pains with James Daniels, but that game,
oh yeah, he's a rookie.
You can, absolutely, any rookie on the offensive line that has to play, they're going to have their moments. But to see him do that, and you're like, that guy, assuming he's healthy, is going to be an anchor on this offensive line for a long time, because that is solid play right there. And that is why the Bears were so excited to pick him in that second round.
And, there was a lot of questions of, was it worth taking him where they did in the draft? And I think so far he's showing why they took him in that spot.
Yeah, I mean, we traded back into the second because Miller was there. So we had got Daniels and Miller, our second round picks. And
can't complain there.
Cannot complain about those second round picks. I mean, Ryan Pace has had some good luck with those second round picks. We got
absolutely.
Goldman has been a second round pick. We've good second round picks.
I mean, we've had pretty good picks overall under Pace, but yeah, definitely.
What else on offense? Let's talk about Santa Slay. You know the play I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
So the beauty, this is the play. So every week, Matt Nagy has these, crazy, he's got these crazy plays that he draws up with weird personnel and formations, and he gives them funny names, usually related to Willy Wonka somehow, but this one was called Santa Slay. And I think we all knew that the Bears scored the touchdown, and the pass was caught by a backup offensive lineman. But if you actually go back and watch the play, the Bears did not have a wide receiver or a tight end or a running back on the field for that play.
I know, it was crazy. It was so funny.
They did not have an offensive or a skilled position player. No wide receivers, no tight ends, no running backs. That is crazy.
You know what the funniest part is? Last year, John Fox was our head coach.
John Fox. He's rolling over on his dead monkey right now.
Trying to figure out what just happened.
Yeah. So, I mean, they had several defensive players in on that play. There was Jonathan Bullard, Roy Robertson Harris, Akeem Hicks, and Bilal Nichols. There were 4 players with 90s on their numbers as offensive players in one play that scored a touchdown.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And here's the thing is Bradley Sewell that caught the touchdown pass. That was a hell of a catch. Like, he went up and just reached up and got that and brought it back down. There was no bobbles. Like, it wasn't like he was wide open. He was fairly open, but there was somebody there and he went up high and took it down. That guy's got some athletic ability.
It wasn't like an easy little catch. Like you said, yeah, it was definitely, he had to make that catch.
Yeah, so that was absolutely amazing. I'm going to say it is frustrating that they were not able to score more touchdowns and sustain drives as far as the offense as a whole, and they had to score on a gadget play. But I'm going to say this. Matt Nagy is probably one of the most creative goal line play callers I've ever seen in my entire life.
Well, especially on the Bears. I mean, there's no question about that.
Well, I mean, easily the Bears, the greatest goal line play caller in the Bears history. But I mean, in general, here's the thing is, when was the last time before this year, if you were at second or third and goal from the 3-yard line, how confident were you they were getting a touchdown?
I don't know. I was kind of 50-50 on it personally.
I was not very confident. I just always assumed if they didn't have a 10-yard run and ran into the end zone, that if they got down to the goal line, that they were going to do 3 runs and then kick a field goal. And it just, or God forbid that Jay Cutler threw an interception into the end zone. And now I just feel like when they get within the 10, if they don't score, I'm really upset because I just have this expectation that Matt Nagy's going to drop this crazy play and it's going to work and we're all going to cheer and celebrate the touchdown.
Were you talking last year how confident I was in scoring a touchdown?
I meant the Trestman and Fox eras.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I misunderstood that. Yeah, not very confident at all. I thought you meant in the game this last Sunday.
Oh, no. Like just in, the previous years, like the Fox era, the Trestman era, if they got down within the 10-yard line, where there's no opportunity for a first down, I never felt confident that they were going to get a touchdown. I just hoped there was no.
Oh, last year, yeah, no, I chalked it up as a field goal every time.
Yeah, it was infuriating. But then you get these Akeem Hicks runs and passes to Bradley Sewell. And here's the thing, though, is Matt Nagy's got cojones of steel because he calls that play and it worked. But if that play did not work and the Bears didn't score a touchdown there, how bad does he get beat up in the media and by the fans?
Oh, he's getting roasted. Absolutely roasted.
That is a play that has no gray area. That is either an absolute A+ fantastic call of the year, or he's an absolute effing idiot.
Oh, of course. Yeah, there's no middle ground.
I mean, can you imagine some of the pundits that already hate the Bears and what they would say if they just blew that? The 4 defensive linemen and a offensive lineman, or 4 defensive linemen and offensive linemen and no wide receivers and running backs. What is this idiot doing? You know, who does he think he is? Smartest guy in the room, blah, blah, blah. And Trestman part 2, but he made it. And I think that's what separates him from a Mark Trestman. Is here's my thing about Mark Trestman. I think X's and O's, if you're sitting there and drawing things up on a chalkboard, I think Mark Trestman was a really smart football guy. It just on the field, I felt like he was just, you know, it's like when you go to taking a test and you know all the material and then you just get nervous and you forget everything.
Well, I also think that one of his biggest downfalls was, yeah, he knew how to beat you one time, but the second time, if you try to play him again, he would do all the same predictable things and he wouldn't make any changes and teams would just adjust.
Yeah, I think that was all just nerves. It's like, you know, an anxiety that he tried to look at the play sheet and he, you know, more Nagy's like, I've got all these plays and I'm going to use them all. And I felt Trestman just then got nervous. He drew up all these great plays and then got nervous. And it was like, I'm just going to stick with the ones that I know we practiced and we did good with.
Yeah.
And Fox just, you know, in the Fox regime, they're like, what's an offense? Those are those people that go out there and try to not turn the ball over and get us good field position for our defense.
Oh, are we going to block the field goal? That's at like 26 yards.
But Nagy he said, I'm making this call and we're going to make it. And, you know, you saw so much emotion from him this game. Like the play where they went out there with their punt unit and then sprinted off to switch things. And
Right.
he lost his mind on a referee that got bowled over. And he eventually, if you went back and watched the video, that ref did get bowled over.
Yeah, he got absolutely
Like, and the funny
steamrolled.
part about it is I could see that happening when there was like 20 people running, 10 running this way, 10 running this way. But it was the one last guy who there was nobody else around him and just had to run around the ref. And he just was like, nope, I'm taking this opportunity to run the ref over and just took him down. And Matt Nagy apologized later, but he was fired up. I mean, it looked like his head, he turned into Joel Quenneville.
Well, yeah, you saw the top of his bald head turning into like a simmering like glow.
Yeah, it was unreal, but it was nice to see him just absolutely fired up. But yeah, offensively, you know, going forward is I mean, the whole linchpin is you got to clean up those penalties, and whatever is ailing Mitch Trubisky is you got to get that right, because you know you can't have him being Jay Cutler going this close to the playoffs.
No, you need him at his top game. There's no question about it. Even when your defense is really good, you saw what happened when Rex Grossman played the way he did in the Super Bowl and other big games. That does definitely need to be improved upon. You need your offense and your defense working together. Even though the defense can win you games, you want to have both sides of the ball balanced because it gives you a better chance to win.
Yeah, I think, especially against Green Bay, is you've got to establish that run and then give Mitch a short yardage to make, and you're going to set him up for success. You can still take those shots downfield. You can still throw, 15, 20 yarders. But it's a lot easier to make when it's 2nd and 5 or 3rd and 3 than 2nd and 15 or 3rd and 10.
Right.
And that's just the thing of it. And, the penalties have to get cleaned up. They have to, that's just, That's just easy things you can do to gain yardage and not put yourself in a hole. It's one thing if the defensive player just overwhelms you and gets a sack. That sucks and it hurts drives. But you sort of have to live with that because that's the reality of playing. But the penalties, those are things you can control. You can't control.
Oh, yeah, those are things that's just simple fundamentals right there.
Yeah, and that's just got to get cleaned up. And then, Mitch just needs to be in that that film room and just sit there watching film and see what he did. And he's got to make sure that shoulder is right. And, Matt Nagy needs to make sure that he's setting him up early with easy throws to get him in the rhythm. Because there was even some easy, short throws that he was just throwing badly. And I hope it's not pain still, because that's not going to bode well. I'm hoping it's just rust, from resting it for a couple weeks. But we'll see. But the Bears need to establish the ground game and to limit the pass rush on Mitch and to get him in shorter field position. I think that's just the recipe to beat the Packers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny. The quarterback play was so bad in that game. I mean, partially due to bad play, partially due to great defense. It's kind of funny, though. I think if I were to sum up quarterback play in that game, it would be Uncle Rico throwing a steak at Napoleon Dynamite's face.
Uncle Rico.
This is pretty much the worst video ever made.
But this defense, there's a few things I want to talk about with that too. The fake punt hurt, and I think we all knew it was going to come at some point, and the Bears didn't have the personnel out there prepared for it. And it's just one play, but when you got a team beaten down, you got to make sure that you keep them down and don't give them opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely.
You saw Leonard Floyd have another great game.
Yeah,
I think he's putting you. So after the end of the season, the Bears have to make a decision on what they're going to do as far as his 5th-year option. So you have to make the decision of what you're going to do with that 5th-year option after the 3rd season. And this is Leonard Floyd's 3rd season. So at the end, they'll have to decide whether they're going to pick up that 5th-year option. And I can't think of what it is offhand, but it's something like $12 million. So he's going to get paid a significant amount of money if they decide to do that. And I had a feeling before a couple weeks ago that the Bears would do what they did with Kyle Fuller, and they'll tender him, and like they won't give him a 5th-year option, and then they'll just tender him as a restricted free agent and match the contract, as long as it's something they felt comfortable with. But I think we're getting to the point where Leonard Floyd is, the premium that's on that position, and the fact that you don't get a lot of good edge rushers that come along. There's not a lot of idiots out there giving away Hall of Famers. And I think he's sort of bullying his way into forcing that 5th-year option or a contract extension.
Well, look, you're finally seeing him do what you're hoping to. Now, obviously, all of us want to see more sacks, but you're looking at the tackles and plays he's making, and it's to the point. I think Chris Collinsworth said this on the telecast, that he looks like a different animal without that cast on.
I mean, there was the first couple weeks without the cast on. He didn't look that good, but now he looks so fast. I mean, you watch him, he's the edge rusher, and Roquan Smith's supposed to be the lightning fast inside linebacker. And when you watch them run, is Leonard Floyd looks like he's a gazelle, and he looks like he's so much faster than Roquan Smith, and it's just unreal how fast he looks. And I'm kind of excited for if the Bears, when the Bears go to New Orleans to play the Saints, is I want to see,
Man, meatball.
I want to see what Leonard Floyd is going to look like on a fast track. I think he's gonna burn somebody and just look fantastic.
Oh, I would love to see that. I would love to see that. But I mean, you looking at both Smith and Floyd, can you really list a lot of complaints about them in this last game? I think they both looked really good.
Yeah, both look fantastic. I mean, I have a friend who he's from Georgia, and he's a Georgia Bulldog fan, and he texted me the other day, and he's like, how's Roquan Smith looking? Because that was one of his dudes from Georgia. And I was like, I missed training camp and started off a little slow, and there's been some hiccups here and there. Mostly is getting confused in pass coverages and things, but the guys just have got an instinct for rushing the passer and the instinct to get to the ball carrier. And once he figures out this defense, he's going to be great, because I think he's like 14th in the NFL in tackles. And most of the people ahead of him, I think he's got more sacks than all but maybe two of them. His stats are great. He's averaging like 8 or 9 tackles a game. Those are fantastic numbers from a rookie inside linebacker that missed all of training camp.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, are we really looking right now and saying, oh, remember when he missed training camp? Remember the whole holdout? Are we really thinking about that right now? I don't think anybody is.
No, because it's a moot point at this point, because he looks good. Even in some of the hiccups where, he clearly is a little confused about what his role is as far as the pass coverage goes, I still think he would have that even if he was in training camp. I think that's one of those things as you look at in the off season and improve. You sit down and you evaluate your whole season and you work on things, because it's, in season, it's really hard to work on things because you have your, normal week, you have your Sunday game, you have Monday off just recovering, and then you have a couple of days of practices and films and getting ready for the next game. Is you just don't have time to work on things or relearn things as you're trying to get ready for the next game. And so that's what the off season is for. And you watch, he's going to come in next season and just, really have command of what he's supposed to do and his role in this defense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another bright spot of this team that has been Bryce Callahan. And I've always liked Bryce Callahan, but the big knock on him has been his injury history. And unfortunately, he got injured against the Rams.
And he broke his foot.
And the good news, though, is they didn't put him on IR.
Right. I don't know if he's going to play or not, but,
I think the Bears are hoping that he could probably play if they win, or when they win that first game in the first round of the playoffs. And they either go to St. Louis. They go to Los Angeles or New Orleans, that he could play. And I think that's where they'd need him. I think they can get by without him. I know they can get by without him, especially considering, look at how well Sherrick McManus came in and played.
Yeah, and you know what? He's a nice depth piece that doesn't get a lot of credit. Bryce Callahan was the same way too. He's been very solid. He's not talked about nearly as much as, for obvious reasons, other guys like Prince Amukamara or Kyle Fuller or Eddie Jackson, but you got to give those guys a lot of credit too. And hallelujah, the Bears have depth on a team that we haven't seen have depth in a long, long time.
Yeah, McManus looked great. If you look at his Pro Football Focus number, I think he was the third highest rated player on the Bears in that game, behind Akeem Hicks and Khalil Mack.
Yeah.
That's saying something. I mean, the Bears had a ton of guys that were scored very high, and he was right there at the top. So, getting him in there and playing, I don't know what he's going to do if in games where you don't have that kind of pass rush, but I really think you get that little bit of pass rush, and he knows his role. He's been on this team for a long time, so he knows this defense.
Yeah, exactly. I think another thing that's really, really good about this Bears defense right now is every now and then you see kind of a screw up, but overall, you don't see a lot of breakdowns like you used to. They're positioned where they're supposed to be. Yeah, we could talk about the Prince of Mukamara thing in the Giants game last week, but I thought against the Rams, we can say that they didn't break down. They were exactly where they were supposed to be. The only thing that really fooled them was that fake punt.
And honestly, that it didn't fool them. It fooled them, but
They
it
almost
did not
stopped them,
have.
too.
Yeah, it was actually a good play by the guy who caught the ball to dive forward, because the defender got there in time, and it had to go to replay, and he made it by the nose of the football. Had he not just stretched out, then that play ends up being the Bears' ball with really good field position.
That's true.
And could have been even more disastrous than that, because the way he reached out, he had no control over that ball. Is if a second guy hits him, that's gone, and you could give the punter to contend with between you and the end zone.
Yeah. No, that's true.
No. So it was a small gaffe, but it's not one I'm very worried about, because the Rams have a punter with a very good arm, and not many teams do that, and not many teams are willing to do that to play in where they are against this Bears defense.
Absolutely.
What else did I want to say? I want to talk about one more thing quickly. We've sort of brought it up before, but put it in a little more perspective. There's a player that elevated this defense that a dummy on the West Coast traded away. Khalil Mack is when the Bears first drafted him, nobody beat up the Bears because they brought in Khalil Mack. If anybody beat up the Bears, it was because they're like, the Bears gave up 2 first-round picks for this guy.
You're not using your voice. I'm disappointed.
What was that? Oh. The Bears gave 2 first-round picks for this guy. Now you're not going to have first-round picks anymore. We're going to have to pay this guy and give him 2 first-round picks. It's just stupid.
There it is.
What are the Bears doing? And so these people are beating the Bears up a little bit because they gave up 2 first-round picks for Khalil Mack. And it's all in how you frame it. You go, 2 first-round picks. That's a whole lot. But they never talk about how the fact that the Raiders are giving back the Bears a 2nd-round pick. So if you pull out that handy-dandy draft pick point system, the one that Jimmy Johnson came up with to kind of evaluate, every pick has a point system. And if you take the points, and I have to do some extrapolation, but for this year, the Bears are going to be drafting somewhere between 26 and 32. Okay. Next year, you expect them fully to be drafting in around that same spot. And next year, I don't know how much growth you're going to expect from the Raiders. So I'm going to throw out that they're probably going to have another top 10 pick. Is that fair? So so that means that they'll have a top 10 pick in the second round. Now, if you take the points of a pick, I think I used 27th pick. So for both seasons. So if you take the 27th pick and you take the points for those two picks, and then you subtract off the points from that second round pick, it adds up to a points worth about the 20th pick overall, 120th overall pick. So essentially the Bears gave up the number 20 overall pick to get Khalil Mack.
And I don't think that anybody, regardless, should be thinking about those draft picks when you have Khalil freaking Mack. I mean, that's just, you have Khalil Mack. That's enough to justify it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is you have Khalil Mack, and essentially you gave up one number 20 overall pick. And if you were to put it in those terms, would you rather have Khalil Mack or the number 20 overall pick? Every day of the week, you're going to pick Khalil Mack because Khalil Mack is absolutely phenomenal. And the odds that you're going to hit on the number 20 overall pick, of even having a solid starter, probably 50-50. And to have a guy that's an all-pro level elite talent, very slim. So, meh. I like what Ryan Pace does with second rounders better than what he does with first rounders. So, you basically got an extra second rounder, gave up the first, and we go from there with Khalil Mack.
It's almost like that Family Guy meme where Peter is looking at the mystery box. The mystery box could be anything. It could even be Khalil Mack, and that was referring to John Gruden.
John Gruden. I think it's funny that Reggie McKenzie built this Raiders team with a lot of talent that went to the playoffs, and then they had a down season because they had a hurt quarterback. And so then they bring in John Gruden, and he just tears it to shreds and makes it a miserable team. And they're like, well, we got to fire our GM now.
Oh, yeah, I know. What a crap show in Oakland.
It is such a crap show. It really is. And I got to ask, in your opinion, who was the bigger swindler? Who swindled his team more? Kirk Cousins or John Gruden?
Ooh. I'm just going to go with John Gruden because these front office decisions are mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is crazy. And then I have a feeling that they're just going to go a different direction with a new quarterback too. So they'll probably be playing with a non-number one overall pick quarterback. And
it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yes, which is so good for the Bears. Because
it is.
If they get that number one overall pick next year, the Raiders, and then the Bears get that second rounder, it's essentially just a late first rounder. And if all goes according to plan, is next year, if the Raiders get the number one overall pick, when the Bears win the Super Bowl next year, they basically, that first rounder they moved back one spot.
Please get in my spaghetti right now, you meatball.
They would essentially move back one spot. I love it. So going forward, we got the dreaded, hated Green Bay Packers this week. And for all intents and purposes, is if, when the Bears win, they win the division and they essentially knock the Packers out of the playoffs, which is such a good feeling to be in. And
That's why I pray it happens. It actually happens.
Yeah, and it's in Chicago, and I don't know when the last time the Packers won a road game is. Sometime last year.
Honestly, I think it was here.
So it's my
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was in Cleveland. The time before that, it was here when Brett Hundley beat us.
You want to know something crazy? If you look at the playoff picture, you know who's probably even more alive in the playoff picture than the Green Bay Packers?
Who?
The Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And they have the same record, don't they?
They might. But the Browns have made some big strides this year.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're definitely on the rise. It kind of goes to show what a coaching change can do there with a bunch of young players.
Coach, when you have a general manager who knows what he's doing.
That too.
When you get a general manager that didn't come from the Mets. You get a guy that knows the sport he's doing. But yeah, so this might be weird, but the Cleveland Browns are my number 2 team. Not number 2 like poop, but like the other team I like.
I think we got what you were saying.
And partly because I don't know. They had the same football or the same uniforms as my football uniforms when I was in high school.
The fact that you actually had to specify that, I can't.
Well, over the last decade or so, you can't tell the difference between the Browns and poop.
Touche.
So yeah, those are the football uniforms that I had in high school. So we wore the Cleveland Browns uniforms.
Were you the Browns?
No, we were the Astros.
Oh.
But our colors were brown and orange. And so when I graduated high school, most people have the gowns and the caps that are like blue or, whatever. Ours were brown. So graduating, we looked like a sea of turds marching around. It was, weird.
Nice.
Yeah. Brown and orange. But yeah, the keys for this Packers game, I think it's going to be limit the big plays, because I think that's the only real way that the Packers can score on the Bears is big plays. And that's what they did in the first game is they got big plays. If you limit the big plays, no breakdowns, keep everything in front of you and make them drive the ball, I don't think the Packers can sustain a lot of drives against this Bears defense, especially on the road in cold weather. And don't turn the ball over and establish some semblance of a run game. You do those 3 things and there's no way the Packers beat you.
I pretty much agree there. I think it's really important to have pressure on the quarterback the entire time, which they can obviously do. Yeah, and don't fall apart like you did in week 1. I think that now they're more confident in themselves and they've learned a lot from that game. So, hopefully if they just apply pretty much everything that they've done right, on paper, I think the Bears are far and away a better team. It just, the biggest X factor is that the Packers just have a guy that is consistently beaten us and is one of the best of all time. And that's who you got to neutralize mainly, because I don't think there's a lot of other weapons that can really be of threat to the Bears.
Yeah. I just, if you don't turn the ball over, and I just think this Packers team is not nearly good enough to beat the Bears. And that first game was Mitch's first start of the year under this new system. And you saw a big learning curve because they looked great in those scripted plays. Both in the first and second half, they looked great in those scripted plays. It was when you went away from the scripted plays. So I have a feeling that they're going to script even more plays, and Mitch knows this offense better. You're going to see a better product. And remember that first game is Khalil Mack was on a pitch count because he hadn't had an off season,
Right.
Training camp. He wasn't in football shape. Khalil Mack is in football shape right now. And, I know he doesn't fully look like it, but Aaron Rodgers has a knee. And So it's Khalil Mack meet Aaron Rodgers. I hope they meet early. I hope they meet often.
Yeah, I hope so too. I really do.
And isn't Balaga banged up?
He might be.
I thought I saw him on the sidelines of the other game. Brian Bull. If Brian Balaga's not playing, he is doubtful.
No, that would be if he's not playing. That's big for the Bears.
Oh wait, hold on. That was against the Rams. The Falcons. Injury update. What does Roto World have to say? No update, but I don't think he played against the Falcons.
I'm not sure if he did or didn't.
Yeah, so we shall see. But hopefully Brian Balaga doesn't play, and because that's just going to make Khalil Mack that much easier to eat Aaron Rodgers' lunch.
Yeah, definitely. That would be a big loss for the Packers.
So I've been dreading this moment.
I know where we're going.
We've got to talk about our two loser teams.
I have a lot more to talk about one than the other. I'm sure you know which ones I'm referring to.
I have a feeling I do. So we can go whichever one you want to go first.
I don't have anything else to say about the Blackhawks than they stink. This is a disaster. Even when they play a respectable game like the one I saw the other night, they still can't find ways to win. Everything is going against them. They're down 2-0 in virtually every game the first 10 minutes. This is awful. It's just awful.
It's crazy as if you look at the games, they're giving up a goal so early every period.
Time, yep.
So they just start off in a hole like 2 minutes into the game, 3 minutes into the game. Like how do you do that consistently? And you're not a good enough team to come back from that. If you look at the defensive metrics, is the only defenseman that you have that's playing halfway decent is Yuka Haru, and he's a young
19,
kid.
20.
Yeah, so he's been your best defenseman. Manning just looks like a fan got to go out there and win a played defenseman for the Blackhawks contest. He's terrible, and apparently he's on the trading block. And I don't. What are you going to get for him? Nothing. Nobody wants him.
Can?
So, I mean, I'd say if you got a bag of pucks, you'd be lucky, really lucky. Nobody's taking him, and that's one of your, one of the things there is you fired Joel Quenneville, and I can be okay with that because I think the direction of this team has to be younger, especially on defense, and Joel Quenneville is shown inability to consistently want to work with the young players, especially young defensemen. And he wants to stick with old defensemen. And I'm fine. You move on with it, but you need a plan in place. And what it seems like is firing Quenneville was, in all estimation, just to buy them time before all the blame goes on to Bowman. And, so after you fire Quenneville, it's you bring in Colleton, who is your guy, and things don't get better. They actually get worse, in which we knew they were because you're a bad team and you're trying to instill a new system. Of course it's going to be bad. And it just gets...
He has 3 wins, Colleton. He has 3 wins.
Yeah, when it's a team with what? How many wins do they have? 8? 9?
They have the same number of wins as the Bears do,
which is more than the Bulls. So it's a bad team. And at what point do you go, man, Bowman stinks. And we got to part ways with him because what is the play here? What do you do? What is this team lost 18 of the last 21 games?
Look, I don't think there's any question anymore. They have to make some major changes in the front office. They have to.
I don't know what you do. Is you don't have high draft picks that are in your system that are going to come up. You have a lot of money tied up with a handful of big name guys, and some of them just aren't playing anywhere near the money that they're guaranteed. Keith Seabrook. And so what do you do? You can't, maybe you can move on from Keith. Maybe somebody takes a Keith. Maybe. But not really likely. But that's a possibility. But nobody's taken Seabrook. Nobody's taken Seabrook. You're stuck with him. Are you gonna what's the move at this point then? Do you part ways with Corey Crawford while you can still get something for him? Do you part ways with Jonathan Taves? How about Patrick Kane?
I don't think there is a plan right now.
That's the thing. There's no plan. It is just fly by the seat of your pants, and they need a plan. And
I mean, it's gotten to the point where it's so unbelievably bad, it's comical.
This is how bad it is. They have the worst record in hockey, and I went to Tankathon, and I did 22 simulations of the draft lottery, and not once did I get the number 1 overall pick.
Oh,
it ranged from 2 to 4. Never, most of it was 3 or 4. I'm like, man, can't even win the draft lottery. So I'm on board for a lot of things, but I just need a plan. I can't at this point be on board with things that don't seem to have a rhyme, reason, or rationale. If you fire Bowman and you bring in a new general manager who has a track record and he says, I have a plan, and they move on from a name that we all love. As part of that plan, I can be behind that.
Sure, absolutely. If there's an actual plan, then yeah.
If you can get a massive haul for Patrick Kane and move on from that $10 million a year salary, I'm okay with that as long as you have a plan and a track record to go with it. Is Bowman is not, he just doesn't seem like he has a plan, and there's no consistency in what he's doing. And I just don't understand where we're going. And maybe there is something that's behind the scenes and they have a master plan, but I can't, if there is one, I can't see what it is.
Yeah.
And, he's as good as Emperor Palpatine at hiding his plan from everybody.
Good. Oh, I'm afraid your hockey team will be quite shitty when your fans arrive.
I give him a vote of no confidence. So, I don't know. Really, this all started falling apart when we lost Hossa.
Yep.
It just seems like Hossa was the glue that held this entire team together. He was the conduit that brought you from a good team to a great team. And he was the glue that held clearly a not good team together to be a respectable team.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was, in my opinion, one of the biggest losses of this team has been Marian Hossa. We could talk about the loss of Keith and Seabrook's youth and ability. We could talk about the loss of guys like Artemi Panarin or Teuvo Teravainen, or when Scott Darling was backing up Corey Crawford in his prime. We could talk about all that stuff, but Marian Hossa doesn't get talked about nearly enough because he made such a difference.
Yeah, honestly, he did. His ability to play on any line, his two-way play, his leadership, the big plays that he made, covering up defensive gaffes as a forward. It just he was great, and I don't think we appreciate what he did for this team nearly enough because of some of the names that you mentioned. He gets sort of buried down under the Taveses and the Canes and the Crawfords and the Keiths. But I mean, it's coming more and more clear that Marian Hossa was arguably the most important cog.
Well, yeah, you look at what he can do, the leadership he brought, the fact that he was such a great two-way player, offense and defense right there. And that's something that's lacking on both ends, really.
Yeah, so I just don't know with this team anymore. It's it's I just don't see it getting better anytime soon because it's not like oh, there was a couple of key injuries and those guys get healthy and we bolster with a free agent and suddenly we're back. This team just has lost its mojo. The defense is bad. The power play just, I mean, I can't even describe how bad the power play is. It just,
Well, I watched it the other night, and they had tons of power play opportunities. They had more than 5, and they had 1 goal on the power play.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you put, Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles out there, they would look more competent on the power play.
Ouch.
It's bad. You can't blame that on Colleton because it's been bad under Quenneville. It's just been bad for a long time. And, here's a hard pill to swallow is it clearly is not Quenneville's fault that the team wasn't good. And it is clearly not Colleton's fault that this team is not good. This team is not good because they're not a good roster.
Yeah, no, I mean, Colleton didn't come in and make this team worse, but it's not like he's making this team any better. I can't really blame the guy for this play because what really can the guy do? And, it was when he was introduced at the United Center, in the pre-games, he got showered with booze. And I think that's unfair to him.
It's really unfair to him. It's, he didn't fire Quenneville. He didn't do any of these things. He got brought into a tough situation. He's new to this organization and you, as a very young guy, and you bring him up you fire a very popular coach that has won a lot of games and a lot of titles for this town and very popular. Quenneville is, although he is Canadian, he is very much a Chicago guy from his mustache on down. And
of course.
And I think the number one question people had when they were like, Jeremy Colleton's going to be the new head coach is, does he have a mustache? And, he was put in a tough spot and he's trying to implement this new system and he is being met kind of with a little bit of resistance and, guys are not doing what he wants them to do. And he's not happy with the performance. He's not happy with the results. And, the players aren't happy. This is getting ugly.
It is. I don't really have much else to say, but it's bad.
Well, let's talk about something even worse.
Much worse. If you think that's bad, this is much worse.
Yeah. So since the last time we talked about the Chicago Bulls, they fired their head coach, which I guess was, I mean, if this was another team, it would not be surprising at all. But because it's the Bulls, it was surprising. And they promoted Jim Boylan to be the new head coach, which I guess makes sense for the promotion. And they went from a pushover coach that had no authority to Tom Thibodeau 2, as far as grinding players and working them hard. And these players are not having it. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I mean, he's a substitute teacher right now in middle school who's getting no respect.
He is the substitute teacher that's trying to teach you, like, if you are in algebra and he's the substitute algebra teacher, he's coming in trying to teach you calculus. And it is going over like a lead balloon. They had, 3 games in 4 days, and the off day, he was having everybody in, and there was damn near a mutiny. From what I'm reading is Robin Lopez and Larry Markkinen had to squash a rebellion because they just weren't going to come in.
Yeah. I think that speaks a lot of the leadership of Lopez and Laurie Markkinen, frankly. I mean, did you see Laurie Markkinen's interview after Fred was fired? And they kept asking him, like, was he the reason you guys weren't doing well or something like that? It was something along those lines, and he kept trying to avoid the question. And it really awkwardly, like, he wanted to say, yeah, there was a problem here. But he wouldn't say it.
So, I mean, here's the thing, is from what I understand is it was not going to be a hard practice, and it ended up just being meetings. But you're a terrible team. You have I think the second worst record in basketball.
Yep, I looked at Tankathon this morning.
Second worst record in basketball. And you think you don't need more practice.
And every lottery I did, they were 4 or 5.
Yeah, they how, in what realm are you a bad team and you think you need less practice? Like, that's what boggles my mind. Now, I get it if, you've had a bunch of games in a small amount of time and you're not trying to give a grinding practice. I'm with you there. But to have team meetings, watch film, do a light practice, yeah, you owe it to this team. You
lost by over 50 the other night.
Yeah, you need
worst loss in franchise history. That was even worse than the Golden State game. Can you believe
this
that?
team is a bad team. And when you look at the talent wise, yeah, they're not a top talent, but they don't have such a bad talent that they should be blown out by 50 points and be the second worst record. That's not, I understand that there was injuries, but you should be a better team than that. And this team plays no defense. And I think it's time to move. If you can move Jabari Parker, even as an expiring contract, you move him. He doesn't add anything to this team.
No.
You move him. And you take your core guys and you play them and, try to build that chemistry and synergy. Because right now you have Zach LaVine, who's a scorer and plays negative defense. Like, he's an abysmal defender. You're starting to get Larry Markkinen in, and he's going to be your best player. Sorry, Zach LaVine. It's going to be Larry Markkinen is your best player. And you're now getting back Chris Dunn and Bobby Portis. and you're starting to get guys back, you need to play them together because that is your core. Wendell Carter needs more time. He needs to play. And I'm fine if you keep Robin Lopez, because clearly he's a good locker room guy and a team leader.
He seems like the last thread of sanity left.
Yeah, so I'm fine you keep him. But Holiday, move on to him. Stop playing him 40 minutes a game. Stop playing the guy that is not going to be here next year 40 minutes a game, because you need to play the young players more minutes.
Yeah. And there's just one player I'd like to bring up really quickly. And I don't really like insulting people, but Cameron Payne might be the worst basketball player in the history of the NBA.
He is really not good at basketball.
I mean, he's better than I'll ever be.
And that's the thing, is the NBA is weird. It's like a guy could suck in the NBA, but he is one of the absolute best basketball players on the face of the earth.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I mean, he could own pretty much anyone who isn't in the NBA, but in the NBA, wow.
It is.
And Gar Forman once said he's a future piece.
This is the frustrating part, is the front office of the Bulls, I mean, the ownership of the Bulls, shows so much loyalty to these two clown shoes, John Paxson and Gar Forman.
How can they sit here and accept this?
So those guys just have permanent jobs, and then you fire a Fred Hoiberg in the middle of a season when he was your hand-picked guy. And here's the thing, and from what I read, is they didn't just fire him. They waited till he came in and then for practice, and they were like, "Oh, you're fired." Like,
they told Boylan that he was going to be their head coach first.
That's it. John Paxson does everybody dirty, and he does not belong in this general manager position. Gar Forman should be launched into space, and John Paxson should be so fired. It's unreal. How many general managers in any sport get to oversee this many coaching hires and this many rebuilds?
How many has it been? 5, 6?
Skiles and Thibodeau.
There was the first Boylan.
Yeah, and then there was who was the one? Yeah, I was about to say, who's the one that he punched? Hoiberg, Thibodeau. There's been a lot of coaches. You go through that many coaches and that many rebuilds?
And you've been to the Eastern Conference Finals once, and you haven't made it to the finals.
You don't, like, what? On what grounds do you still have a job? Like, there's a difference between loyalty and stupidity.
And this is what the Bulls are. They run themselves like a small market team when they should be one of the premier franchises in all of sports. They hire people that they know because they're, buddies, or they like the old-fashioned way that's not anywhere near close to succeeding in today's modern NBA. They don't get with the times. They don't get creative. They don't look outside the box. They hire their old buddies because it's nostalgic. And that is infuriating. And the fact that Reinsdorf is in the Basketball Hall of Fame because of the successes of Jordan makes me want to throw up. I'm going to say something that may be agreed with or disagreed with, but right now, as we stand while we're recording this, 8:42 p.m. Central Time, 12/11/2018, the Chicago Bulls are the worst run franchise in sports right now.
I'm going to disagree with you. Only because there's the Oakland Raiders who traded away Khalil Mack.
I mean,
but
they're just stupid from a perspective of how they're building their team. This goes beyond success on the court. They are being run just so poorly, and the way they are carrying themselves is just disgraceful.
It's you remember, was it 2 seasons ago at the end of the season when they had their secret press conference where
Of course.
they talked about accountability and that there would be accountability.
Yeah.
And then immediately the next season, there was no accountability. They just hid Gar Forman in the shadows because fans universally I have never once met a Bulls fan who's like, you know what? I like Gar Forman. Because none exists. That's the thing. There's none that exist. They universally hate Gar Forman. And if you're John Paxson and you fire Gar Forman, you buy yourself several more years of this job as in the fans' eyes, because that's how much they hate Gar Forman. And instead of launching him into the moon, you say, well, I'm just not going to let him talk to the public. He's going to hide in the back. I'll talk to the public.
It's nuts.
That's your accountability?
Look, it's one thing if Gar Forman and John Paxson were really trying and they were doing some things that just weren't working and it just wasn't working out. You can, at least sympathize with them a little bit. But when you do things like this, when you tell your assistant coach he's going to be the head coach and let him come in and tell him he's fired, then you're going to do this press conference thing. Then you say, we're going to get younger, more athletic, and you do the exact opposite. This is stuff that is just, it's awful. It's awful. And you can't sympathize with that. It's going beyond just not having things work out. It is just doing things that are bad.
It's just unreal. Hello, can you hear me? Okay. It's just absolutely unreal the way that this team is operated, and it's embarrassing. And I feel bad for our friend Big Dave, who has to go on TV after every single game and talk about this train wreck of a team. And, going into the season, we knew they weren't going to be good, but I just thought we would see progression. We would see growth of young players. And what we've seen is, selfish players, injured players, so far no growth of players, and more of the same old Gar Pax. And I'm going to say this, and I want to put this into context, but I am not wishing any sort of negativity towards anybody. But the fact will remain that until Jerry Reinsdorf passes away, this team is not going to go anywhere.
Well, I'm worried about his son is just the same way.
He's the one that's maintaining this, blockade of bad front office people.
Because, here's my question. How much is Uncle Jerry really involved with the Bulls these days?
You hope he's not.
Isn't his son doing most of the stuff anyway already?
I honestly don't know. But, John Paxson still has a job, so.
Frankly, my wish is suddenly Reinsdorf wakes up and says, you know what? I'm going to sell the team. That's what I would love. It's not going to happen, but I would love it.
No, because they're making money.
And that's the thing. They're making money. Why does it matter? They're making money. That's good enough for them, isn't it? Making money?
That's the point. Making money.
An honest question I have for Bulls fans that still watch every game. Why? How can you watch this? I can't.
I'm having a hard time. I'm finding myself with a lot more free time because, before between Bulls and Blackhawks, my time was so occupied. And
Sure, me
now,
too.
now I'm not like, oh, yeah, I definitely got to sit down and watch these games. I watch some highlights afterwards, and I watch the Bulls Outsiders. And quick shout out our friend Big Dave from Bow as a new television show. It's not quite new anymore, but it is after the Bulls post game on
NBC Sportsnet.
yes, thank you. I keep wanting to call it
Mhm.
Comcast, but NBC Sports.
I know, me too.
After the Bulls post game, immediately after is Dave's show, and it's a good show. It's a really good show, and when it's past my bedtime or I'm busy, I set up my DVR to record it because they're my connection to this bad Bulls team, and I truly hope that for his sake that this Bulls team can turn it around so they have good
Me
things to
too.
talk about.
It's got to be tough for him. It's got to be really tough.
Yeah, it's a brutal one.
Yeah. Ugh.
Well, I don't really have anything else I want to talk about. How about you?
I could go on forever about the GM meetings, but it's 9:00. I have to get up for work tomorrow, so
Yeah, I don't really want to talk baseball because it has just been, other than McCutcheon signing with the Phillies, which all the Philly fans I know are quite upset about. I don't know if I would be upset. There hasn't been much going on. So
it's a lot of rumors, speculation. 1 minute the Cubs are in on Harper, the next minute they're not, yada yada yada. So
yeah, and 1 minute Machado and Harper are signing with the White Sox, and then 1 minute neither are. So yeah, until we have something, it's been the cold stove league.
yeah.
So I guess that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swirsky Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. I think that's the reason we do the show. So please make sure you hit subscribe, however you listen to podcasts, whether that's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, or the TuneIn app. And your job this week is to share this podcast with at least one friend. That's how we grow the show. Check us out on social media at ShyFanPat1, at Swirsky Sports, Facebook.com/Swirsky Sports, SwirskySports.com. And a big congratulations again to the 100th episode, Alex, on the show. And thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing